Okay, so the next topic is data sources. What comes to your mind uh, with this term data sources? What is a data source? Any source that you acquire data from is a data source. And there could be many out there. All right. How many of you have done business in O levels? And how about A levels? Okay, quite a few of you are doing business in A levels. Those of you who have already done business in O levels, you might have studied about research or research methods. Am I right or not? Right? Okay. There are two main types, or there are two main ways that can be used to carry out research. Can anybody? Primary and secondary. Very good. बिजनेस में लगता है ए या ए स्टार आया हुआ अच्छा याद है अच्छा anyway so primary research and secondary research, can anybody tell me the difference between the two? What is the difference between primary research and secondary research? By the way, if you're trying to figure out why have I all of a sudden started talking about business and primary and secondary research, well, it relates to this topic that we are doing. You do know that IT and business go hand in hand these days. They have a great merger, and these days businesses are unthinkable without use of technology. All right, so yes, there will be on some occasions you will see some concepts that you might have done in business that you will be doing in IT as well, but with the viewpoint of involvement of technology in business. So can anybody tell me the difference between between primary and secondary research? Anyone? Or I will have to take that comment back that I just made a while ago that लगता है कि A's और A stars आए वो comment वापस नहीं लेना पड़ेगा हाँ अच्छा okay I didn't know that is the case. Okay, so yeah, anyone? Okay. Very good, not bad. Good, that's good. Yes. Pre-made what? Okay, all right, ठीक है. Yes, I think what you're saying is correct. देखिए, what is the difference between the two? Primary research is acquiring or acquisition of data, collection of data, gathering of data when you go to the source where the data exists directly to acquire it first hand. I want to collect some data. I know the source where it exists. I get in touch with that source myself directly to get it. And I think some of you said, one of you said, I think, that using questionnaires to collect data is a form of primary research. Conducting interviews to gather some data or collect some data, such as, आप अभी बात कर रही थी थोड़ी देर पहले surveys की. Now, surveys, if conducted through an interview process, getting to the source myself, maybe questioning the source and noting down the findings. All right, so that's one way of collecting the data. If I distribute questionnaires and ask people to fill in those questionnaires, I'll get those questionnaires back, the filled questionnaires back. I'll go over them, analyze them, and then use them for my whatever decision making that I have to do or whatever research that I'm conducting. So these are primary ways of conducting or carrying out a research where I would collect my data directly from the source where it exists for my research. What is secondary research? Secondary research means that uh, whatever information that I need or whatever my research requirement is, somebody else at some earlier point in time has already conducted a research on that. It might be for a different purpose, but data exists regarding what I want, or data exists regarding what I also need to collect, but has already been gathered by somebody earlier on. So what I do is, instead of conducting that research or collecting that data firsthand, I decide that, well, data in this domain exists already. There was a research conducted by somebody sometime earlier. Okay, so I can use the same data for my purpose as well. So in this case, is the source that I'm using to collect the data a first-hand source? No, it is not. Because that data was collected at some other time by somebody else from some source. I am just using that data because I feel that this data might be fit for my purpose as well, or for my research as well. So it's a secondary form of acquiring the data for studying it for my purpose or for my research. Are you getting the difference between the two, primary and secondary? Now, how does it link to the topic that we are doing? आप इसी कॉन्सेप्ट को सब्सटीट्यूट कर सकते हो with direct data sources and indirect data sources when it comes to IT, and the topic that we are doing. So data sources can either be, or data may either be acquired through a direct data source, or it may be collected through an indirect data source. ठीक है? All right, so direct is primary, indirect is secondary. Direct is again where I am actually getting in touch with the source myself to collect the data, making use of certain tools such as questionnaires and interviews and stuff. Indirect data source where I am using somebody else's data that was collected at some other point in time, and I feel that it is fit for my purpose as well, so I can use it for my research as well. So that would be an indirect way of acquiring the data. Okay. One key difference between the two, although we have seen the basic difference between primary research, direct data, secondary research, or indirect data, one key difference between the two is that, and this is a very important point, direct data is usually used for the same purpose that it is collected for. Direct data is used for the same purpose that it is collected for. Whereas indirect data that you are collecting, okay, is being used for a purpose other than it was originally collected for. पहले किसी मकसद के लिए कलेक्ट हुआ, और अब मैं उसी डेटा को यूज करूं बिकॉज वो मेरे पर्पस के लिए भी फिट है. अब मैं उसको यूज कर रहा हूं फॉर माई पर्पस विच इज different than the purpose that it was originally collected for. So this is also one of the differences between direct and indirect data. Okay, let's have a look at a few examples. Let's have a look at this example of a sports shop. It says, for example, and by the way, we are looking at example of a direct data source, how data is collected through a direct data source. For example, a sports shop wants to find out what other shops are charging for trainers. What are trainers? Shoes, okay? Some form of shoes. There are various direct sources from which this data can be collected. These could include visiting the other shops and noting down the prices. I have a sports shop. I want to set up, say for instance, it's a newly set up sports shop, and I am deciding about the prices for various items. And I have some confusions regarding some items. So I try to carry out a research, or I decide to carry out a research to find out the real prices. So what I can do is, one of the things that I can do is that I can visit other sports shops who are also selling trainers to find out, what price are they charging for trainers. So I can walk into any random sports shop, wherever I find those types of trainers. I can look at the price and I can note it down, and then base my decision of what price I should set for trainers in my shop on that information. Am I collecting this information firsthand? Yes. So it's a direct way of getting the data from the source. What other method can I use? Visiting other shops, websites, and noting down the prices. Again, I am directly visiting the website that has prices listed on it. I note down the prices, and that is how I find out about the prices of trainers. Lastly, carrying out a survey of other shop owners to ask their prices. Well, I can go to any shop owner and I can ask him that, can you please tell me what price are you charging for trainers in your shop? तो अगर मैं उस शॉप ओनर से डायरेक्टली पूछ रहा हूँ and then I'm noting down the prices, then I'm going to the source directly and acquiring information or collecting data which I would like to use for my purpose. So notice one thing here, that the data is being used for the same purpose that it is being collected for. I wanted to set up a price for trainers in my shop. So I am acquiring data regarding what other shops are charging for trainers. उसी purpose के लिए use हो रहा है. So these could be some of the examples of how data may be acquired using a direct data source. Let's now have a look at the same example where the same data and information may be acquired using an indirect method of acquiring data. So what would that be? Okay, now for example, the sports shop could use various indirect sources as well to acquire this information. And what would those be? What would be the examples of using indirect sources to acquire this information? Well, carrying out a survey of customers who have purchased trainers from the other shops. Carrying out a survey of the customers who would have purchased trainers from different shops. Is this a direct way of acquiring data or an indirect? Indirect, right? How is it indirect? Because I am not visiting the store itself. I'm not asking the owner himself. I am not visiting the website of that store directly to note down the prices. I am relying on a third party, the customers who would have purchased trainers from those shops. Yeah. So this will be an indirect form of acquiring data from a certain source, okay, that I need for my purpose. All right. What could be the problem here? Any idea यहाँ पे क्या problem हो सकती है? What could be some of the inherent problems when it comes to gathering data from indirect data sources? Okay. One person at a time so that everybody gets a chance. Yeah. Inconsistent data. Maybe outdated. They might lie. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's a possibility. वो ऐसे तो नहीं होता कि जैसे आप कोई चीज़ खरीदें, आपको बहुत बहुत अच्छी चीज़ थोड़ी सी सस्ती मिल जाए, आप कहें कि अच्छा फ्रेंड्स के सामने तो आई विल फ्लेक्स अबाउट इट, आई विल बी लाइक, अगर मेरे से कोई प्राइस पूछेगा तो मैंने ली तो इतने की, लेकिन मैं बहुत हाई प्राइस बताऊंगा just to flex and stuff. Anyway, so that would be a case of lying about it. Okay, so yes, these could be some of the inherent issues. One of the biggest issues with gathering data from indirect data sources is that I cannot trust its reliability. and the fact that it might be outdated. Do I know when these people bought trainers from these shops? Was it 4 months ago, 5 months ago, a year ago? I do not know that. So the prices might have changed due to inflation, like the way the prices are increasing. Well, can I base the price of my trainers in my shop on the feedback given to me by customers who had purchased trainers from some shops, okay, at an earlier time? तो एक तो ये हो सकता है the prices might have changed due to inflation, the prices might have increased. So the price being given to me by those customers might be a price different than what I should set in the current scenario or situation. That's one thing. The other would be, what if the time at which those trainers were purchased by those customers whom I'm going and asking about the price, what if the trainers were being offered at a discounted rate at that time? उस पर डिस्काउंट चल रहा था उस वक्त, मे बी 30% or 40%. There was a discount, so he told me about the discounted price. Okay, I mean, not being very particular about कि जी ओके ओरिजिनल प्राइस तो ये थी, मैंने तो और मैंने सस्ता लिया, सेल चल रही थी. He just tells you a price. Okay, that was a discounted price. You thought, well, that is what the price was actually charged. You did not know if it was a discounted price. So if you set up that price, then of course it would be far less than what the product should actually be charged. Yeah? Yes.
And sir, if you're the one collecting the data, wouldn't you make sure that you're asking these questions?
Well, yes, you should be asking these questions, but what if you forget about it? There's always a possibility of that. What if you're not being careful about it? What if you are not a person who has any formal education in knowing when you are acquiring data, how to check that the data is qualitative? ठीक है ना? तो अगर आपको ये नहीं पता कि how important ensuring the quality or integrity of data is, then you might not be aware of all these things, and you might take it a little lightly, or you might not be very careful about it. Okay, and that might result in you acquiring data which is false, which is not accurate. And if you base your research or your whatever it is that you want to use it for on that, then of course it might not be what you want it to be. All right, so that's the way it is. So those are the possibilities. So these would be those inherent issues. Another way of acquiring this data through a secondary source would be looking at till receipts. Does anybody know what are till receipts? What is a till? Till receipts तो बात की बात है. What is a till?
Machine will punch out your orders or anything.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah.
It means until set date, maybe expiry date.
No, this is not that till. I mean, we are not looking at the literal meaning of the word till. Till is that area, that point in a shop where you pay for the goods that you have purchased. It's called a till. And it particularly looks like, or it particularly is that point where usually you would see a computer and a barcode reading system, a barcode reader and stuff. So that is particularly called, what do you call it? You particularly call it a POS. Sorry. Yes. POS, that stands for a point of sale. Point of sale is that area or that point in a shop where you pay for the goods that you have purchased and you get a computerized bill generated out of that point of sale system. All right. और जो जहाँ पे barcode system यूज हो रहा होता है, actually हम उसको particularly it is called an electronic point of sale, because the receipts are not being generated manually. They are not paper based receipts, they are computerized receipts, so it is an electronic point of sale. So that electronic point of sale can also be called a till. So till receipts is receipts, computerized receipts generated from a point of sale system. How silly would I be if I base my data collection on, till receipts that I gather from here and there, and I try to look at the prices being charged for trainers. Again, the same thing. When was that transaction made? How long ago was that transaction made? Okay, how long in the past? So the more the more the time difference, the more are the chances that at that time the prices would have been very different than the way the prices would have been now. All right. So do you get the difference between direct data sources and indirect data sources, and the purpose that they are used for, and the underlying the benefits that we have just seen, that what could be the issues with indirect gathering data through indirect data sources. All right, there is an entire list of advantages and disadvantages that we would be looking at further up. Okay, not now, a while, just in a little while. So that would make things even more clear about direct and indirect data sources. You have a question?
I wanted to ask that अगर आप किसी कंपनी की receipts की through information collect कर रहे हो, how is that indirect? Is that direct like receipts from the store?
It is indirect in the sense that you were not a part of that transaction. You're not the person who carried out that transaction. Okay, you are using information of a transaction that was carried out by some other person. Yeah, so you're just acquiring data from there. Just a few minutes more before I will give you a break. One very interesting exercise that I'll do with you in this class. Actually, it is given in the book, and it will very accurately demonstrate as to how much have you understood this particular topic. Let's have a look at this activity. What is this activity about? And by the way, now we are going to be, although we have been interactive up till now, but now it will be a case of being more interactive, where I'll be giving you an example. Okay, you will tell me, or I'll be discussing an example with you, and you will be telling me whether it is an example of a direct data source or an indirect data source. So let's have a look at the first example. There are three columns. The first column contains data. The second column contains the reason that it was collected for. And the third column depicts the reason that it was actually being used, or it is actually being used. So let's see. The first example is names and email addresses of members of a political party. That's the data. Reason collected: to record their membership and to be able to contact them. This was the reason that it was collected for. The reason it is being used for: to contact members by email to see if they will donate some money. Is this an example of direct data source or an indirect data source? Okay, show me through raising your hands. How many of you think this is direct? Sorry, I did not get your question. The question is, in this example, does this depict use of direct data source or an indirect data source? Direct? Indirect? Somebody from here? Direct? Okay, do most of you think that it is direct? Okay, what if I say that it is indirect? Okay, why would it be indirect in my view? And I think it would make sense. देखिए, you collected information of people just to be able to contact them in need related to party matters. That is what the sole purpose of collecting this information was. They did not. They did not actually give their consent, these members, they did not give their consent for you to contact them randomly or on odd timings or whenever you want to participate in a donation. You might not like it. आज आप एक डोनेशन के लिए कांटेक्ट करें, कल आप XYZ रीजन के लिए कॉल कांटेक्ट करेंगे, you will be like, well, my purpose of giving you this contact information was so that you just let me know uh, whenever I am required, for anything that is related to party matters. But if some organization has approached you and now you're approaching us to donate some money, we did not, really give you our consent for that. So it is for this reason that I think that this is indirect. All right, it is not being used for the same purpose it was collected for. Let's have a look at the second example very quickly. Employee attendance dates and times. Reason collected to identify when employees attended work and to calculate their wages. Purpose used or reason used to allow a police officer to check an employee's alibi if a crime has been committed. Of course, it is indirect. It is indirect because that is not what the purpose of collecting this data was. वो तो salary calculation के लिए आपने की है. ये थोड़ी कि आप you pass it on to some police department for interrogation and stuff. So clearly indirect. Next, flight times and prices from airline websites. Reason collected to compare the prices and times for a trip to Florida. Purpose used or reason used to decide the best flight to use for a trip to Florida. Direct, exactly, very good. Because the purpose of collecting this data was to find out about what the prices and times for a trip to Florida. So when you have those prices and timings for different flights, you can always use it for the purpose of finding out as to which is the one which is the best option available out of the lot for a trip to Florida, the same destination. So the same purpose that it is being used for as it was, the purpose it was collected for. Next, just two more examples. Names, ages and addresses of people. Reason collected for a national census. Purpose used or reason used to allow a marketing company to find out which areas have the highest population of children. Indirect. You are not supposed to pass on information to random marketing companies of the society or the population at large so that they can bother you with their marketing campaign every now and again. Yeah, so clearly indirect. Last example, weather measurements from a weather station. Reason collected to record the current weather. Reason used to show the current temperature and rainfall on a website. Direct. The purpose was to find out about or to forecast the weather or to give weather data. All right, and also it is also being used for the same purpose. Yeah. So now you get an idea how to differentiate between direct and indirect data sources. Is it clear? Okay, very good.